Hey traders, welcome to Charts and Coffee. Great to see everybody. Happy Thursday. Happy GDP Thursday. Let's take a quick peek at what has transpired since this morning's GDP. And let's go to the 5-minute chart of bonds and of the euro and of, we'll just go with the S&P, right? Okay, so first of all, bond yields are heading higher as the ZB futures contract started moving lower, but let's also notice that the movement lower in the bonds, meaning yields are going higher as bond futures go lower, really started far earlier this morning. I'd say this coincided with the close of the Asian session more so than anything. So as Asia was closing, you got Auckland, Sydney, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Singapore, all closing, and you've got Europe and the UK open, but waiting on the US. Boom, there go bond futures, and you'll see the 8:30 candle, just a quick move to the downside, and really not a lot of acceleration since that 8:30 GDP. But bonds are weak. But we always want to know why bonds are weak, and bonds were weak well ahead of that GDP. All right, same thing can be said for the S&P. S&P's been moving lower since right around that 4:30 a.m. Eastern time. And then 8:30, yeah, S&P definitely took it on the chin with that 8:30, but we were already heading in that direction. Ditto the Dow. Take a look at something though, gang. If you've never put the 200 propulsion, which you can get for free on TradingView, which I make available on Thinkorswim, when we break that 200 on the 5 minute, there is a lot of interesting action around that. Just as we would look at a 200 on a daily, that 200 on a 5 minute is pretty interesting as well. Wrapping it up with the 6E. Now, the 6E is our euro. The euro is going to move opposite of the US dollar. Not a lot of movement here. I don't see a lot of dollar strength. This is not a lot of dollar strength in terms of where we've been since the open of the Asian session last night around 7:30, 8 o'clock Eastern. So really not a lot here to say, oh, the dollar is just skyrocketing higher. Last thing we're going to check. Last thing here. What are those telltale target rate probabilities telling us? Do we have anything different for March? Absolutely not. We are still expecting, right around that 5% target rate, right in there. So nothing has shifted in terms of the Fed becoming more hawkish on that GDP data. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into your questions. As always, phone lines are open for your requests. And first up, all right. Good morning, Prince. Follow up from yesterday. Sure. My trouble is with execution not always being quick enough to crunch the numbers for futures, park and order type, and therefore miss trades, especially in a get in now. So, the easiest way to handle futures risk, and Prince, it's good that you're being hesitant about futures because it's far easier to trade SPY calls as opposed to a long position in the ES futures, leverage being what I'm saying is the difficult part to calculate, right? That's the conversation here. So if we know each point in the S&P is $50 and we know we're using, for example, HPMR shadow, the most important thing that you can gauge throughout the morning is the HPMR shadow is not going to adjust rapidly throughout the morning. So if one of the things that will help you, and I do this myself, so let me show you one of the things that I do when I'm using my HPMRs. Okay, let's go take a look at the S&P right now and the HPMR. And let's say we were going to put on a trade. Right away, I'm going to look at, as you can see, I'm just always in the back of my mind, just making an assessment of, okay, that's about 38.47 to 38.37. I know that's a 10-point range. Right away, I know my HPMR shadow is $500, right? We can do the same thing with the wave. So rather than think about risk right at the moment of the S&P day trade, right? Because it's the speed that we're talking about. Just always keep in the back of your mind a general idea of the width of the wave, how many points. Doesn't have to be exact, and the width, and the height, the width, the height, whatever you want to call it, of the HPMRs. That's going to help you a lot because you're already then in tune with the volatility based stop that we're likely to lean on for the trade. All right. And it's usually going to be no bigger than that, if not sometimes smaller. And that's a really good way to keep up with the risk, especially of futures. And you've got a good point there. So, yes, absolutely. Keep an eye on that. All right, Lori, good morning. What percentage of trades in sector secrets are futures? And how much money should I have available to participate in that program? Sure. And while we're getting some of these questions on the sector secrets, which is my mastery here at Simpler, you can go to sectorsecrets.com, and check out what we're doing. Right now, if you go to the simplertrading.com website, you'll see we're having a holiday sale, which I just realized this morning that we are. And, I like letting you all know when we're having a sale. This is a killer sale. So if you've been wondering, yeah, Rog, I'd like to kick the tires on what you all are doing in that room, you can head on over to simplertrading.com. And when you're checking out for your membership on Sector Secrets, which is a quarterly membership, by the way, I guess we're knocking 25% off. There you go. So that is, for those of you that are wondering what the questions are about, that is it. So Lori asked, what percentage are futures in the morning? So Lori, we have 3 different sessions, and I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but since you're asking, just really quickly, this is the schedule. So every morning we day trade. Now, when we day trade futures, I also, in the notes that I keep on the screen as we're day trading, I also put the ETF alternatives when there's liquidity. So it's not unusual that a trader in our room, let's take the S&P, for example, they could be looking at ES futures, MES futures, right? Because all the setups will apply to multiple routes of entry. So ES futures, heck, there's options on the ES, the micro, the SPY ETF, as well as SPX. And with the levels that I give you all, you can make that decision to go whichever route you'd like. So it's not that we have to trade futures, but we will most definitely have a futures emphasis 5 days a week in the morning. And that's from 9:20 to 10:35. The weekly macro and position trades, those are far more shares and longer term options. The watch list building and swing trading, again, that's either options on the ETF, on the stock, and or the shares, right, of the ETF or the stock. So we do a little bit of both. As far as a percentage goes, it depends on which session we're talking about. But there's always going to be something rooted in futures. There's always going to be something rooted in the ETF. What I want everyone in the mastery to become, what my goal is for all of you, is how I've had a 30+ year career. I really want you fluent in everything, because the top-down approach that I teach you all is, hey, what's going on with currencies, treasuries, metals, energies, indices? Where does that map to a sector? Where does that map to a stock? So you're going to find, if you go to the playground, you're going to spend all day on the slide, or you want to be on the monkey bars, the seesaw, the swings, the merry-go-round, all of it. I want you to be able to play on all of the rides on the playground. All right. Next question is Netflix. Sure. First, I'll tell you, if I am looking at Netflix, first thing I want to do is look at the structure. I'm not bearish Netflix. I mean, far be it for me to be bearish a stock that's been moving higher in a trend on and off since the end of October, right? However, as it has before once, early November, and now here late December, it's getting a little wobbly, but it is still bullish bias, and it is still able to maintain support above that 200. I like the long side. And as far as a pattern that I teach and that I use, anything above 289.30 is a reasonable buy. Well, I shouldn't say anything above. Let me walk that back. The closer we are, but above 289.30 is buyable. I'd rather you, if you're going to buy this, don't buy anything higher than 298. I mean, you really would prefer to be inside the wave, but the closer we can be to that 289.30, the better for, if you're going to buy the shares, if you're going to buy the option, call options here, maybe you're going to sell premium and sell those puts as we sink down to that level. I'm more of a directional debit player, so I'll look to get long options, long calls. All right, next up, hey there, Top Spin. Smash that like button before the question. I appreciate that. RTX long call. All right, let's jump into that. So structure, oh gosh, beautiful, beautiful structure top spin, green trend, green momentum, nice observance and respect for the 34 EMA wave, which is what I prefer to see as my quote unquote mean reversion, right? What is that average we are pulling back to within the context of a trend? It's moving higher now, much like that aforementioned Netflix question, Topspin. I've got a pattern here where as long as I can sink down to about 98.65, anything above that and between, say, 98 and a half is a really nice um, zone. Where we are now, see, here's the problem for me. And if you're already in it, Topspin, enjoy the ride, right? If you've already put a quarter in the machine, you're good. However, I would not recommend, buying a call with the bullish momentum unless we're able to capture that momentum very quickly within that move higher. In other words, before everybody sees that this is a bullish stock and the call premiums start to get redonkulous, right? So that's really the goal. If we want to use momentum, it's got to be really early stage momentum. If we start getting into mid to late stage momentum, the word is out, the premium is up, and we're going to end up overpaying. But I like that as a buy the dip. Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Good eye. All right. Next question is all right. Chris E. Good morning. What is the difference between shorting QQQ and going long SQQQ? Directionally, Chris, nothing, right? Directionally, there's no difference because SQQQ long is taking advantage of a weak QQQ, and shorting the QQQ is taking advantage of a weak QQQ. So nothing directionally. The difference is going to come down to cost. The difference is going to come down to liquidity. And that's where I'll tell you straight up, I don't trade SQQQ, although it is, I believe, fairly liquid. I'd have to double check. I just am not in it on a regular basis. But if you find liquidity there better than QQQ, or if you find your cost is more reasonable there, absolutely. Is it an alternative? Sure, sure. Going back to that alternatives of choose your own adventure, how one symbol can give us multiple choices, right? NASDAQ futures, NQ, MNQ, the micro, options on the NQ. That's just three opportunities within the futures themselves. Once I get a read on the NQ mini futures, boom, I can cast a wider net. Choose your own adventure. QQQ calls, SQQQ puts, right? If you want to be playing that. The underlying QQQ itself. So that's 6 different ways we can play NASDAQ when we have a singular idea on that NQ futures. And you're going to hear me emphasize a lot, whether you trade futures or not. If you're going to trade the SPY, the SPX, the MES, look at the ES. If you're going to trade the NASDAQ, QQQ, SQQQ, NDX is not super liquid, but MNQ micros, I'm going to watch the NQ. And the reason this makes it so easy, this is the more 24-hour look. We've got good volume and good liquidity throughout nearly a 24-hour session. And so technicals look better. Everything's smoother. I've got a much more global, more participated opinion of what people think, what traders think of the NASDAQ. And then that can map to all the different iterations of the NAS. So thanks for the question. Great question. All right, Mr. Walker, how are you, my friend? USO, of course, is going to take us to CL, kind of along the lines of what we've been talking about this morning, right? What are the different choose your own adventures? Tell you what, if could USO and UNG, that's your proxy is CL for USO and NG for UNG, right? So I am interested in possibly getting long natty gas, not because of seasonals, but because of an oversold environment and chop on natural gas. So USO, UNG, crude oil futures, natty gas futures, and RB, that's your gasoline. It's not super liquid, but that is the UGA. So if you're trying to link up, okay, Rag, I'm seeing where you're going with this. You're looking at futures. Maybe you don't trade futures, not yet. I do teach you all how to do that in both the Sector Secrets Mastery and the Futures Room. It's not difficult. It's the market that I started off trading. I think if you're already an options trader, you're already fluent in this concept of expiration. You're already used to different contracts and looking at liquidity. And now you're going to take that knowledge and apply it to futures. So it's not as disparate as it may seem. RBOB, futures, and UGA, great link. And remember, calls on USO and UNG are pretty liquid. UGA is kind of iffy. UGA is a little bit iffy in that regard. But before I get into USO, UNG, or UGA, I've got to get a read on the underlying futures. Absolutely. Thank you for the question. Avi, all right. I once said that whatever we see in the chart, we need other traders to see it too. Right. Because we can't be alone in a trade. Exactly. It doesn't mean at the same time, but eventually, yes, we cannot have a winner without more flow, right? We could never be alone in a winner. It seems that not a lot of traders are using the 34 EMA like you intraday. Okay. So let me explain what I mean by that. I don't mean they're going to use my tools, not at all. What I need to know is that when I find a level on a chart, is there likely to be a response? Am I able to see something other traders cannot, do not see? And that's where the wave and HPMRs and DPMRs and V score give me an edge. It's not that we're all looking at the same thing. Oh, hardly, right? It's, am I finding via the tools that I use, am I finding that the levels that are identified by my tools are reacted to? Because we cannot be in a trade alone. So for example, take a look here. I'm going to grab my drawing tools. Take a look here at the S&P 5-minute. You mentioned intraday, right? Do most people know what HPMRs are? I'll say no, they don't. I invented them. I know that really the only people that know about this are the people here at Simpler, or you all watching our Charts and Coffee show. Is it responded to? Absolutely. Do most traders know why? I would guess not, but it is being responded to. I've got a Darvis level here. Do most traders have Darvis 2.0 on their screen? Probably not. So with that being said, I don't need them to look at the same thing. I just need to know that my tools are identifying where opinion is, well, higher, that attention is higher. So I hope that makes sense. And I don't need people to use my tools, right? To be able to do that. In fact, I kind of don't want them to, right? Because I feel like I have an edge with that. However, the true edge isn't having some super secret squiggle. The true edge is having the discipline to make sure that we're going structure dictates strategy, right? And strategy dictates indicators. If I've noticed anything become a needle mover for traders, it's that process. And then more than anything, the holy grail, there's only one: position size risk management. Traders who position size as if they really want to trade again tomorrow are always going to do better than traders who are just slinging size without really acknowledging the risk to their account. Risk management is everything. So hope that helps. All right. Do we get a set of Ginsu knives with that membership? I'm not a fan of Ginsu. I will say I've been digging my Damascus knives. But yeah, you just missed that special. Just missed that Black Friday special of the yeah, not now. Sorry. Windows closed on that. Ginsu knives are still around. Can you believe that? What a brand. What a brand. All right. Gold is hanging. Let's see here. I've got a question on gold. All right. Let's jump on over there. Let's jump on over to gold. How am I on time? Oh my gosh. Where did the morning go? Great questions this morning, gang. Gold is bullish, and I'm going to continue. Alan, I am not going to bet against the trend. The path of least resistance is established on the daily time frame as up. The real yields, the real interest rates, the chasm between the nominal yield of a bond and the rate of inflation is narrowing. That is bullish for gold. I'm looking to buy the dip. Are we going to have overhead resistance? You can see how much trouble we keep running into when we hit the upper end of daily volatility. I would imagine that would be no different around 1840, but I think the closer we get to 1800, very, very buy the dippable. Yeah, you got it. Very buy the dippable. All right, last question before we call it a morning. DUK, uptrend, absolutely love it. I'd like to see NEE also in an uptrend, Debbie, because that is going to, in many ways, dictate what As you mentioned, DUK is going to do Y. They're all part of XLU. And NEE and DUK would be two of the relative outperformers. I would say within that. Is NEE still the relative outperformer? No, you've got the relative outperformer right there in DUK. So rather than going with the tide, the XLU ETF, go with that boat. Well done. Really nice. Yeah, buy the dip. You got it. All right, gang. Thank you as always. Thank you as always for being here for Charts and Coffee. That 20 minutes goes by fast. I just try to get through the questions first come, first serve. I will see you tomorrow, though. We'll be right at it. Get those questions in early. I just go from top to bottom. Thank you as always for being here. I will see you tomorrow. Be good to each other.